Hi guys. So, developing a story for a book isn't as obvious as you might think. Um, the third book I'm writing, it's actually based on three what I thought were complete stories, but they were in Dutch. They were written. I think I said this before, somewhere at the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. The one I'm rewriting now is written, I think, even 91 or something. But I mean, I with translating them to English, I embellished them a bit. And the first story was rather complete. It was a story about 105 pages that turned out to be, I think, 125, 130 pages more or less. And it was kind of complete, except that in the translation, it changed a bit. I read the story before I started translating it, and then I had some ideas with it. I played with some ideas, and people who would appear in the next stories died, so I had to or put the things the ones that reappeared. I had to relocate or reassign them to other people. Now, the other two stories, the second one about a haunted house, it was about 25 pages, and it now turns out to be about 70 to 80 pages, more or less. So it's embellished a lot. And I also connected these stories much more than I did in the past. In the past, there were just some characters that reappeared and they had a different adventure. But now I'm like a feature in the first story without giving away too much. A feature in the first story was a laboratory where they made a kind of drug. It reappeared in the second and in the third story because the main protagonists uh, they studied chemistry, biochemistry, pharmaceutical chemistry, and they are being invited to work for that place. So first do an internship, and then later work for that place. So that's like the start of a subplot where other characters that didn't appear in the original stories are in some form or another reappearing, and it's going somewhere, and I don't know where yet. And that's a bit the problem. It's like an organic process that the story isn't complete. I don't know exactly where the story goes to, and therein lies a little problem because a lot of series like on Netflix or series from the past, sometimes they kind of cross like a border. They have like this fantastic idea, which I have at the moment too for this story, because not only the characters from the first story are reappearing, there are also characters from the second story that only appeared in the second story that actually hark back a little on the first, only a little, and that start coming coming over to to the rest of the stories. And there is kind of a subplot forming that will be that supposedly comes together in the last book. I'm envisioning a trilogy, and it's sort of in the last story of the last book. It sort of has to come together, but I don't know how yet. So I don't even know my own story where it's gonna end up, and it's a bit fascinating and it's a bit scary too. And I have this idea, this fantastic idea about a road that these stories could go to, but it's rather radical. And I found, for me personally, in series that suddenly take a radical turn, where the demeanor and stuff of these series suddenly changes a bit, I don't really like that. So I'm not. I don't know if and in what a quantity or in how a big impact that fantastic idea is gonna have in my story. So I wanted to kind of explain this a little bit, that the writing process isn't as straightforward as many people might think. So what's going to happen? I know. I mean, I have other story. I think I have other 2 or 3 stories lined up from the same characters that is going to have to be translated and rewritten into English, and they're going to have these subplot lines incorporated in them, because there is one rather substantial story that is sort of finished, but with the rest coming together. I mean, we're gonna see. I envision a trilogy called the William Parker Chronicles. I'm writing part 1. It has 3 separate stories in it that, as I said, are linked a lot more than I envisioned, or that I written in the past. And I myself am, well, a bit curious to see where this all is all gonna end. And it's gonna end. It's gonna come together. It happened with the first book, where I had 2 fairly lined out stories with an enormous gap between them that I had to fill with another story. They are actually 3 stories from 3 different timelines, and it came together. In the end, it all came together pretty nicely, although I say it myself. But still, it's a bit scary, it's a bit exciting, and it's what writing is all about for me anyway. So I'm hoping you liked this video. You can leave a like, you can share it. I'm gonna still put the links in the description for my 2 first books, who are still available at Amazon. And let's see that the third one, it's nearing its finish. I hope to finish it at the end of this this month, and put in the copyright application at the end of this month. But let's see, because at the end of the month I also have my shoulder operation, and we will see how everything turns out in the end, in the future. So I hope you're all good. I hope your family is okay. And I will see you next time.